Hi, thanks for joining us on Atheist Edge. I'm Sam.
I'm Courtney.
And today we're going to be discussing how you can know and verify whether or not things are true and the importance of verifying truth. And your particular field of expertise is psychology, is that correct?
Yes. It's undergraduate level, but I'm working on PhD, so.
Understood. And so, are there any particular facets of psychology that relate to belief and how that influences people's religious belief?
Well, psychology deals with confirmation bias. It deals with the psychological fallacies that we make just by being human, and so that's something that's consistent across the board. And psychology really values looking at things on a larger scale so that we can kind of gather what's true across the board.
So you mean by studying large groups of people,
right?
And kind of taking averages,
right? And so you have the outliers and you have the uncommon things, but what tends to benefit the masses of and makes psychology relevant to the flourishing of human beings is finding those consistencies across larger groups.
Understood. What do you mean by confirmation bias?
Well, confirmation bias is a logical fallacy that has been discovered to kind of affect everyone, no matter what background you have and what your expertise is. And so, meaning that we tend to confirm what we already believe by seeking out those things, and really confirmation bias affects our behavior. So if you're running an experiment and you think that you're going to achieve a certain result, then your behavior in gathering the information will affect how that information is gathered. It affects what you gather, and it affects what you look for. And so in confirmation bias, you have this tendency in any human being to see information that confirms their previous held belief, and to actually ignore or not even recognize information that is contradictory to what you previously believe.
So in a way, it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
It's using evidence and observations to bolster your beliefs rather than informing your beliefs based upon evidence. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And the distinction there is that you have this knowledge of we have a confirmation bias as human beings, and so the importance of the scientific method comes in to where any level of certainty comes from recognizing the tendency of confirmation bias and accounting for that with the scientific method. So you're constantly, within the scientific method, you're constantly trying to disprove your theories and your ideas.
I see.
And so in doing that, you kind of combat that as much as you can, and you recognize that things like double-blind studies, where when whatever you're looking at, you don't know what the results are going to be, and the person that you're experimenting doesn't know whether they're getting the medicine or the placebo kind of thing. And so with that, you're combating it in a way that really only the scientific method and the sciences can do.
So it sounds like what you're describing it's a way of removing the subjective element based upon feelings and intuition, leaving the objective element,
right,
not based upon people's feelings or perceptions necessarily of the experiment.
Right.
So it leaves just the objective measurement.
Yeah, and I was really excited when I got into my major of psychology to kind of discover that the only real way to come at what is really true is to account for these biases that we know that we all have. And so you're able to combat that in a way that you can't really do with the metaphysical worldview.
I see. So it was the scientific method and the process of confirming knowledge, whether or not it's true. But you're also saying that the process of disproving knowledge is just as valuable.
Right. Right. And that's kind of the way of combating that, so that you can be that much more certain that what you discover is true. And also the other part of that is peer-reviewed research, where you open your methods and your results and your data to anyone who would like to run that experiment themselves, so that if you do something in America, someone in Germany or someone in France or someone in India can conduct the same experiment and achieve the same result. And so that's the importance in the scientific method, or in the scientific community, of replicating studies.
Replication,
yes.
Reproducibility.
Right.
And I think that's a great point to really bring up. That it's what makes facts is that they've been tested and that they've been observed, and that it's possible that they could have been disproven. The evidence could have gone either way, but the evidence came out one particular way rather than the other.
Yeah, and on a personal note, with the atheistic perspective, for me, I've always said that I stopped, when I became an atheist, I stopped believing what I did because it was taught to me, or because I valued it so much, and I started to value what is actually true. And this is something that you do in the scientific world, is something that the truth of it is where the value of the idea comes from, not the value in how much we like it, or how much it confirms what we think. It's about, the one that has the data and the evidence to back it up. That's what rules the day, and that's what's so noble about the scientific world.
So, basically, because these observations line up with reality, and that they've been confirmed and the process confirms it, that's what makes them facts, as opposed to subjective feelings or personal intuition. Is that what you're saying?
Right, and consistent over time, it's something that is the opposite of a lot of supernatural claims that at least I've heard, where it's kind of like this one guy had this one thing happen, and you can't replicate it, and you can't go back to that moment and verify how truthful it is. Our minds, confirmation bias is just one example of the many different things that go through our brain that affect our perception and our what we take from a situation. So it's really important to account for those things, and to know as much as we can about the mistakes that we tend to make in our psyche.
This to me points to why reality is objective rather than subjective. Because if reality was just your feelings, then there is no knowledge or truth that could be established from that. Yeah. With reality being objective, it can be studied and it can be known. If this weren't true, then we couldn't gain knowledge about even one particular facet of reality. And so this is great. This is why I like talking about science and the scientific method. I think it leads closer to truth. Maybe I shouldn't use the word truth, but truths. There's a lot of facets of reality, things to be understood. Can we understand them and know them completely in one individual brain? No, but we've got a lot of brains working on a lot of issues, and we can accumulate that knowledge of objective reality to arrive at facts that can help us make better informed decisions. Like, for instance, should you engage in this particular religious activity just because all these people are saying so? Or is there another reason to not engage in that particular activity? Maybe it's not good for you. Maybe it's not beneficial. Maybe, in fact, it's harmful for you. But there are answers out there based in objective reality.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Courtney, for joining me today on Atheist Edge. Again, my name is Sam, and cheers.